After 21 hours of negotiation spanning a single day and night, the lights in the Islamabad conference rooms finally went dark. U.S. Vice President JD Vance announced the United States was leaving without an agreement. He left what he called a best and final offer on the table and boarded a flight home. This was the first time the United States and Iran had engaged in high-level, face-to-face dialogue since the 1979 revolution. For 21 hours, the leverage to end active regional bombings and stabilize multiple war zones sat entirely within that single room. A diplomatic marathon of this scale represents a massive logistical investment. The fact that both sides walked away without a signature raises a specific question. What demands were so rigid that they broke the deal? For the United States delegation, the primary objective throughout these negotiations remained the future of the Iranian nuclear program. Historically, success meant a measurable metric, the verifiable dismantling of physical capability. In Islamabad, the strategy pivoted. Since the infrastructure was already destroyed, JD Vance demanded an affirmative commitment and fundamental will to never pursue a weapon. Assessing long-term intent is significantly harder than inspecting centrifuges. While hardware can be photographed and counted, the will of a government is a psychological state that cannot be verified by traditional arms control inspectors. This shift in strategy meant that even if every Iranian facility remained closed, the deal could not move forward without a way to satisfy a requirement for a permanent internal change in Iranian policy. On the other side of the table, the Iranians arrived with their own set of non-negotiable red lines, starting with an economic ultimatum, the immediate unfreezing of their foreign assets. Their second red line involved the Strait of Hormuz. Iran refused to budge on U.S. demands for control over this narrow choke point, which they view as their primary source of regional leverage. As these two sets of red lines collided in Pakistan, the political context of the negotiations was being reshaped in real time from Florida. While Vance was locked in talks, President Trump was attending a UFC match in Miami. He publicly dismissed the urgency of the negotiations, stating that we've already won, whether a deal is signed or not. When the commander-in-chief signals that a deal is unnecessary, it removes the pressure on his delegation to find a middle ground. It effectively transforms a negotiation into a take-it-or-leave-it ultimatum. The result was an impasse. Iran would not concede on assets or the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. delegation held firm on a final offer that lacked the president's active involvement. The departure of the U.S. delegation marks a pause in the negotiations, but the communication channel itself remains intact. The length of the session suggests that the two sides were engaged in substantive, technical exchanges rather than mere posturing. 21 hours of dialogue allowed for the most detailed exchange of terms between these two nations in decades. This sustained dialogue was made possible by the Pakistani mediators, who performed the diplomatic heavy lifting required to keep both sides in the room. By facilitating the first face-to-face meeting between high-level U.S. and Iranian officials in 45 years, Pakistan established a direct diplomatic funnel that survived the initial failure to sign an agreement. For now, the regional conflicts continue, and the U.S. proposal remains unsigned on a table in Islamabad. While the session failed to end the war today, it did establish a functional mechanism for future communication. For the first time since 1979, the two capitals have a direct line for technical negotiations, and a standing offer remains active through the Pakistani mediators.